الله بالخير. لعل ما يسمى اتفاق وقف إطلاق النار بالنسبة إلى العدو الإسرائيلي هو اتفاق استباحة وإطلاق نار، فهو ليس معنيا بكلمة وقف، إنه الستار الرقيق الذي تخفي خلفه آلة الاحتلال المتوحشة أكثر صياغها دموية، فكل رقم في تقارير القتل والاعتداءات داخل السجون الإسرائيلية، وكل طلقة على ما يسمى الخط الأصفر في غزة، وكل اجتياح للضفة، وكل صاروخ إسرائيلي اخترق الضاحية الجنوبية لبيروت واغتال ودمر، يكشف حقيقة واحدة: إن العدوان الإسرائيلي لم يتوقف قط، بل أعاد تشكيل نفسه كمنظومة عنف إقليمية تدار بدم بارد. صور خيم خان يونس الغارقة بالمطر، صرخات الأسرى تحت التعذيب، المنازل المحترقة في بيت لحم، صدى الانفجارات في قلب بيروت، كلها ليست وقائع متفرقة، بل أجزاء من هندسة قمع واحدة وإرهاب واحد. المسألة لم تعد هل ستستمر إسرائيل في خرق اتفاق وقف الأعمال العدائية في لبنان وغزة؟ هي تستمر بالفعل. المسألة باتت: هل يملك العالم بعد القدرة الأخلاقية على مواجهة هذا النظام العبثي السقيم الذي يمارس الاعتداء والحرب وهو يرتدي قناع ما يسمى السلام؟ وهل العلاقة الخاصة بين إسرائيل والولايات المتحدة الأمريكية اليوم تتهاوى؟ لقد وصلت المنطقة إلى لحظة مفصلية، صراع يتجاوز الجغرافيا ويمتحن كل من ظن أنه خارج اللعبة. هنا يبدأ الاختبار الحقيقي: من يصنع الموج ومن سيغرق عندما يعصف التيار؟ نرحب بكم ونرى ونسمع أكثر مع ديمتري لاسكاريس، المحامي والناشط اليوناني الكندي في البعد الأقرب. هذه الميادين، وأنا زينب صفار، خليكم ويانا. Salam and welcome to Al Mayadeen. This is Zainab Al Safar for the Proximate aspect, and my dear guest is Dimitri Lascaris, Canadian lawyer, activist, and journalist, joining us from Montreal. Dimitri, pure pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Most welcome. Well, before we get into the heart of it, I'm curious, Dimitri, when you look at the Palestinian cause, what stands out to you first? Why is Palestine so important, and why does it still matter to people thousands of miles away?
Well, two things stand out for me. The first is the utter depravity of Western governments that have supported this genocide. And secondly, the incredible fortitude, courage, and steadfastness of the Palestinian people, that they have survived this, and not only survived it, but continue to resist their extermination and oppression. It's an accomplishment of historic caliber, and something that I think will be remembered for generations to come. What I think was particularly troubling for those of us living here in the West is that, and I think this is the reason why all human beings, whatever their concerns may or may not be about the region of West Asia and Palestine, what should be foremost in our minds is if the people who are doing this to the Palestinians succeed in exterminating them. I don't believe they will, but if they were to succeed and they were not to be held accountable for this horrible series of atrocities that we've been witnessing for over 2 years, then they will come after us. Our own children here living in the West will not be safe. Our future will be in jeopardy.
Right.
The most basic concepts of civilization. So really what is at stake here is basic human decency. And the Palestinians are on the front line of a
Mhm.
civilizational war for human decency.
Excellent. In a similar context, Dimitri, did the UN Security Council betray the Palestinian people by endorsing the Trump deal or the so-called peace plan?
Absolutely. It was a betrayal of historic proportions. The best analogy that I can offer is imagine if the UN Security Council had existed at the time of the Second World War, and the uh, the German Nazis proposed a plan that would put Hitler in charge of Auschwitz.
Mhm.
That's exactly what this is in substance. They have put the perpetrators of the genocide from a legal perspective, or attempted to put them legally in custody of the crime site, and in addition, have not imposed any consequences upon Israel for its depraved behavior. No reparations, no denunciations in this so-called peace plan, no calls for the Israeli war criminals or the American war criminals who have armed them to be held accountable in a court of law. They've given them a complete clean slate from a legal liability perspective while empowering them to do as they wish with Gaza. It
Mhm.
is literally like putting Hitler in charge of Auschwitz.
True. Now, how deeply, Dimitri, are Western liberal democracies implicated, as you said, legally and structurally in Gaza's destruction, given their private sector tech giants provide the cloud and AI backbone for systems used in mass civilian targeting?
Well, let's bear in mind that Israel is a geopolitical pipsqueak. It is a country of some 10 million people. 20% of its population is Palestinian. They want nothing to do with this genocide. They're opposed to it. It is a country with minimal resources. It could never get away with what it is doing in this region to the indigenous peoples of the region in Lebanon, in Palestine, and elsewhere without massive support from the West. And the West has provided support in every conceivable way. They've provided military equipment, they've provided intelligence, they provided economic support, they have provided immunity from legal prosecution, they have provided propagandistic and rhetorical support, trying to justify what Israel is doing. In every imaginable way, every major Western government, including the government of the country where I'm currently situated, Canada,
Mhm.
has provided multifaceted support for this genocide. And the people who should ultimately be held responsible for this are the leaders of Western governments. They too must
Mhm.
pay a price.
What about the forces of the people?
Well, everyone I talk to, certainly every person I have contact with, their heart and soul is with the Palestinian
Mhm.
people and those who are resisting oppression in the region. There are, unfortunately, a certain number of people in our society who remain to this very day under the influence of a very effective, sinister, and increasingly aggressive propaganda system. But the majority of people living in the West today, and I believe polls bear this out, are absolutely horrified by what is being done to the Palestinian people. And in their minds, Israel is a monster
Mhm.
whose image cannot be rehabilitated at this stage.
Right. Might you, Dimitri, share your expose highlighting how some local armed groups, thugs, and gangs are manipulated and enabled by Israeli security services to further destabilize the Palestinian people in Gaza?
Well, there was a very interesting article in the New York Times about a month ago
Mhm.
in which a key figure from this movement was interviewed, and he was described by the New York Times, which obviously is not it's not partial to the Palestinian people; it's pro-Israel, and it described this individual as having living in a very comfortable environment. He was laid back. He was smoking a cigarette, and he showed off a watch on his
Mhm.
wrist, which had been a military watch, which had been given to him by an Israeli soldier, and he was bragging about it. He was bragging about the fact that the perpetrator of the genocide was giving him gifts.
Mhm.
So there's no question that these are not rebels. These are not people who want to replace the current resistance government of the Gaza Strip with another. These are simply people who are exploiting their own fellow
Mhm.
Palestinians for personal gain. And, I must say, you can find this in every society. This is not peculiar to Palestinians. There are always, sadly, in every situation of oppression, some small number of people who are willing to collaborate with the oppressor, and the Palestinians no different. They have that problem as well.
So the so-called ceasefire is functionally a fiction, Dimitri. Why does Israel breach every ceasefire agreement, whether in Lebanon or in Gaza, though overseen by the US of A with utter impunity? Does the recent Israeli strike on Beirut's southern suburb reveal a regional doctrine where Gaza, the West Bank and Lebanon are treated as a single continuous front, allowing Israel to bypass international law by dispersing its violations across multiple geographies?
As I've said many times, the best way to think of Israel is a gigantic United States military base masquerading as a country. It's not a real country. It is a tool that was set up to impose the will of Western oligarchs on the region in the aftermath of the Second World War. The United States military planners looked at the region. They called it the stupendous source of strategic power. They said it was the greatest material prize in human history. And it's not just because of the oil and gas in the region. This is the nexus between Asia, Africa, and Europe. The trade routes are very important. The human resources of the region are quite impressive. So the Americans set out, along with the British and other Western powers, to assert their dominance over the region. And that's what Israel is designed to do. And they are simply trying to exterminate any and all resistance to American hegemony at this particular moment. And the reason why I think this genocide is happening now is because Western power is in rapid decline. And so they are desperately clinging to, as military planners put it, the greatest material prize in human history, because they know if they lose control of West Asia, the era of Western hegemony will truly be over.
Right. In a similar vein, some observers note that Trump's Saudi F-35 deal and regional realignment are eroding Israel's long-held qualitative military edge and weakening its diplomatic leverage. Is Israel's strategic decline on the world stage, including the erosion of its U.S. special relationship and the loss of regional primacy, being accelerated intentionally by Netanyahu as leverage for personal legal survival today?
I suspect that this war criminal would want Israel to retain its power, but I think it's also fair to say that he probably prioritizes his own survival and freedom over that of the people of Israel. And that's been demonstrated in many ways. You know, what's going on now in Israel is that because this so-called peace deal, this fraudulent plan put forward by Trump and approved by the UN Security Council, has now been adopted and they're implementing it. The whole narrative that Israel is at war is no longer sustainable within Israeli society. And so the people are demanding that there be a public inquiry into what happened on October 7th. They've been demanding this throughout this genocide, but Netanyahu kept telling them, well, we're at war. We'll deal with this when the war is over. Well, now he's saying the war is over. So they want that inquiry. And I think that what he may well be doing is trying to provoke a full-blown war with the resistance in Lebanon as a way of continuing to delay any meaningful inquiry into the disaster of October 7th.
So you believe that the recent strike against the southern suburb of Beirut is just trying to drag the legs of the resistance into an all-out war with the Israeli entity for the benefit of Netanyahu?
Absolutely. Every one of these attacks, these daily attacks on Lebanon, was a provocation. They saw that the attacks they've implemented thus far have not provoked a further all-out war. And so they just to escalate, and they went after the chief of staff of Hezbollah.
Right. Now, the US, NATO and Western media are actively working to reshape West Asia's geopolitics by legal/coercive measures, psychological and media operations, as you just said, targeting Iran and the axis of resistance and their peoples in this sense. As a legal observer / journalist, how do you read this, Dimitri?
Well, as a legal observer, they've destroyed any credibility that the international legal system had. You know, the United States not only has fueled this genocide, the United States, its attacks on Yemen were an aggression, a violation of the UN Charter. Its bombing of Iran Not only was that a violation of the UN Charter, but it was also a war crime because they bombed nuclear facilities, which have a specially protected status in international law for obvious reasons. You know, the attack on the Iranian diplomatic compound in Damascus months ago, which provoked the first round of this war,
The
that was a
consulate, true.
that was a blatant violation of the laws of diplomacy and the protected status of diplomatic facilities. These killings of political figures, they wiped out almost the entire cabinet of Ansar Allah, the killing of senior political and military figures in Lebanon and in Iran. These are extrajudicial assassinations and violative of international law. They have violated international law 6 ways from Sunday, and not one of them has been held accountable. So we are, because of all of this, we are descending into the law of the jungle internationally. And this is why I said at the very outset that although we should be prioritizing the salvation of the Palestinian people, this actually implicates all of us. We are all at risk if we allow it to continue.
Exactly. In talking about the law of the jungle, let's talk Canada now. Dimitri, Trump has repeatedly made public statements about making Canada the 51st U.S. state, reclaiming the Panama Canal and acquiring Greenland. Canadian officials take these comments seriously. Is Trump gearing up to erase Canada's sovereignty and rewrite the map while the world watches in silence, or is he now deviated into tackling the issue of Venezuela and then an eye into the Levant? What do you say?
Well, when Trump referred to Canada as the 51st state and the former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as a governor, I must admit that I laughed. Rather cynically, because as someone who was born and raised in this country, I came to the conclusion a long time ago that Canada in many ways already is the 51st state of the United States. Our foreign policies are dictated by Washington. Our domestic policies to a large degree are constrained by the dictates of Washington as well. Our economy is existentially dependent upon trade in the United States. Canada is a very resource-rich country with an educated population. It could be a sovereign nation if it's politically wanted to be. But in order for that to happen, we would have to, disentangle ourselves from the American empire. But instead, our leaders over decades have enmeshed us further and further inside the American empire. And now we're just basically a satellite of the United States. Now, other countries in the region, most notably, you mentioned Venezuela, Mexico, these are countries that have a much higher degree of sovereignty, especially Venezuela, than Canada does. And so I'm not so concerned that Trump would use military force against us, because he doesn't have to. We already largely are dependent and completely servile vis-a-vis Washington. But in the case of Venezuela, that is a country which is serious about its own sovereignty. And I think he's perfectly capable of going above and beyond the crimes he's already committed in the Caribbean.
Right. Let's go back and talk about Gaza, Dimitri. People have been watching genocide live on their phones in real time. 2 years of unfiltered horror in 4K. Has this broken something fundamental in those who still carry a conscience? And if you could sum up Gaza in a sentence, what would it be?
It's been a trauma. It has been a collective trauma for all of humanity, all those who have a conscience. And I speak to people every day who, I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to friends and comrades and people I don't even know particularly well. We start talking about what's happening in Gaza and they just break down crying. This has been a knife, a dagger in our soul. And I don't think we'll ever recover from it. Those of us who've been paying careful attention to the horror, forcing ourselves to do so that we can bear witness to the crimes of the West. But many of these same people who have been traumatized by it are now more determined than ever to hold our leaders to account. And I think ultimately where this is heading is justice. There will be justice. It's just a matter of when and not if.
Right. Now, last October, Dimitri, amid the 2-year anniversary of the Gaza genocide, Zionist settler terrorist attacks on Palestinians in the West Bank hit an all-time high. Arrests, settler attacks, drone strikes, home torchings and shootings, they continue daily and they will definitely escalate. Against that backdrop, might you highlight the human cost of occupation, of ethnic cleansing and extermination, please?
I actually managed to enter occupied Palestine in March of last year, I believe it was, during Ramadan. And I visited the refugee camps of Jenin and Tulkarm. I was also in East Jerusalem. And I can say, this is a legal opinion, that this genocide is not and has never been confined to the Gaza Strip. Israel is perpetrating a genocide in the West Bank, albeit at a lower level of intensity. And if it succeeds there, I don't believe it will, but if it does, it will then turn its sights upon the Palestinians in East Jerusalem and ultimately the Palestinians within the 1948 boundaries of Israel who are citizens of the genocidal entity. That's where this is heading. And you can see the people in the West Bank, the impact that this is having upon them is devastating. Their livelihood is being destroyed. They are in a constant state of insecurity. Their homes are being demolished. When I was in Jenin, I visited a family that had just been, whose house had just been raided by Israeli soldiers. And the mother who was there, they had taken away her 3 sons. And the mother who was there told me that they had held her at the door to the house while her sons were being beaten so that she would serve as a human shield because they were concerned that the resistance would show up and would attack the Israeli terrorists. So, no one is safe in this environment, even the mothers of children.
Right.
Even babies are not safe. So this is having a terrible impact upon the Palestinian people throughout throughout history of Palestine.
True. Dimitri Lascaris, Canadian lawyer, activist and journalist, we truly appreciate your insights and your time, sir. Thank you very much, Dimitri.
Pleasure talking to you.
ما يجري اليوم في إسرائيل لم يعد صراعا سياسيا أو أزمة عابرة، بل لحظة تفكك داخلي يغير وجه الكيان من الداخل. حكومة محاصرة تنشئ لجانا تشبه محاكم التفتيش، تعين رؤساء أمنيين في ظلام مطبق وتلوي ذراع القضاء حتى يتصدع. المؤسسات التي أنشئت لتكبح السلطة باتت درعا لها. المنطقة تتحرك وتغلي بلهيب النيران، والاعتداءات الإسرائيلية غير الآبهة بأي اتفاق ولو برعاية أمريكية. وواشنطن تعيد الحسابات، أوروبا تتململ، والإقليم يتحرك على إيقاع جديد، وتل أبيب تفقد مركزيتها، بينما العفن الداخلي يطفو على السطح. في هذا المشهد من الخداع الممأسس وانهيار الضوابط وتغير موازين القوى والفوضى، يبقى السؤال الحاسم: هل يستطيع كيان أن ينجو حين يصبح حراسه مشغولين بحماية أنفسهم؟ من كل الميادين، حياكم.